Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It's Tuesday, and for the first time in what feels like forever, it is match day. Arsenal versus Fulham kicking off a little bit later on today at the Emirates. I will be there for that one. I'm not going to be in the press box though, so no live updates from me on my social media channels. I'm going to be in my seat with my dad for this one. So yeah, if you're expecting live updates, not going to be happening from me tonight, but I will be, of course, coming back here tomorrow to do the big review show, hopefully talking, fingers crossed, about a very nice Arsenal win. And it is, of course, April Fool's Day over here in the UK. Well, I presume it's April Fool's Day around the world, actually. But this isn't a joke. This isn't a prank. Bukayo Saka will be returning to action later on tonight for the first time since December 21st. And I cannot wait for the reception that he is going to get later on at the Emirates. So we'll talk about that in today's show. We'll do my predicted 11. Got some comments from you guys as well. We'll look at what Arteta's had to say about Bukayo Saka. Some more interesting stuff from him in the overnight sort of section of the press conference, the embargo sections. We'll look at that as well. But I'm sure you've seen it. It's all over the back pages today. It's all over the internet sites. Arsenal's big summer, according to Mikel Arteta. Now, these are quotes from, again, the embargoed section of yesterday's press conference. So it didn't go, you didn't see them during the live section. It was the embargoed section for the papers and all that sort of stuff. If you haven't seen it or heard them yet, this is what he had to say. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see it on screen. If you're listening on podcast, this is what he said. The way we planned the first 5 summers, they were going to be very big and they were going to have different objectives because the turnaround of players and the objective of those windows was going to be different. But now we are going to go again. We want to increase the depth of the squad, but as well, we want to increase the quality and the skills that we need to go to the next step. It's going to be a big one, and we are very excited about it. The last 5 summers were big. Every summer is big because it is an opportunity. But it's a big summer for many things because, first of all, we have to maintain the good foundations that we have. And then, obviously, how can we improve and evolve the team? So that's what Arteta had to say yesterday at the press conference. And that has generated massive headlines. As I said, you pick up the newspapers this morning around the UK, you turn to the back page, and on pretty much every single one, it's about Arsenal's big summer, according to Mikel Arteta. It's certainly generated an awful lot of discussion points and all that. So Lewis has got in touch and says, "Hi Charles, how do you feel about the comments recently made by Arteta about it being a big summer for transfers this year? I don't really like it myself because I feel like a lot of teams who we approach will add more onto the asking price because they know Arsenal have the funds and can be pushed. We've seen in recent years the Premier League clubs pay more than other leagues, and it's particularly true the top 6 clubs. So do you think we should have been a bit more, he should have been a bit more reserved with his comments? I realise that everyone knows Arsenal wants to sign some players this summer, but I don't think he needs to shout about it." So, look, I don't think what he says is going to change anything about the summer. I also think, I mean, you go back to the quotes, I don't necessarily think, looking at this, I know why this has generated big headlines and stuff like that. I'm not sure it was the wisest of words to use for Arteta, by Arteta, but I don't actually think when you read it, he means big as in necessarily we're going to spend massive amount of money, you know. And I think more he's saying it's big as in it's important because he says all 5 summers were big. And, you know, last summer they didn't really do too much, did they? And yet he's calling that was a big summer. So I kind of feel like he's talking more about the importance of the summer rather than necessarily the size of the budget that Arsenal are going to be splashing out on. But I'm not sure it was the wisest of words from him because it has generated all this. And, you know, people are going to hold him to these words now, and they're going to come back to bite him if Arsenal don't spend massive, if they don't do much this summer, which I think they will do, by the way, anyway. But if they don't, for some whatever reason, you know, people are going to hold on to these words from Arteta, and they're going to use it to bash him with it. You think back to what was it, Josh Kroenke's quotes a while back, the "be excited" stage. You know, whenever Arsenal don't have a good window, those words come back and are used against Josh Kroenke. And I imagine that Arteta, if Arsenal don't have a good window or don't splash the cash this window, that these words, people are going to remember them and are going to use them against Arteta. So I'm not sure it's the wisest of words from someone who usually is very, very measured when it comes to his press conferences and chooses his words very wisely. I'm not sure these were the wisest words, but who knows? I think it maybe also might have been a little bit of a message to Andrea Berta. Obviously, Obviously, sorry, lost my train of thought there. Obviously, Berta was at a press conference yesterday beforehand. Met the journalists who were in the room. A lot of the talk was about Berta in the press conference, and obviously his appointment the day before. Maybe this was a bit of a message, a first public message to Berta of like, this is a big summer. You need to get it right. You need to make sure you get the deals done that we need to get done. From Arteta, when I say he picks and chooses his words wisely, he does, which is why I was a bit surprised by the tone of what he said yesterday. But maybe it was a measured approach. Maybe it was something he decided to do to sort of lay down the gauntlet to Berta of like, right, you're here, you're on board, we've brought you in, we've shown a lot of trust in you to bring you in over other candidates. Now you need to deliver what I want in the summer and get the deals that that we want over the line. That's your remit, certainly for the next 2 or 3 months, is to make sure you get what we've kind of lined up over the line. And obviously those words come on the back of the Gyokores story that David Ornstein dropped a couple of days ago now, that he's moving right towards the top of the agenda for Arsenal this summer, which would be a big money move for a very high profile forward who's captured a lot of imagination over the last couple of years with the goals he's scored since he's moved to Portugal. But when you sort of break it down, what's going to come from Arsenal this summer, or what we expect to come from Arsenal this summer, I mean, it is going to be a big summer for Arsenal because they're going to sign a striker, which is going to cost you, bare minimum 70 million around. If I don't know, if say you get Sesko, I mean, Sesko may be slightly cheaper than Gyokores, but give or take, you're going to be spending 70 million at a minimum for the striker. Obviously, that could double if you decide to really go for Alexander Isak and find a way of luring him out of Newcastle, which I don't think is going to happen, by the way. But, if it is, you're talking 140, 150 million potentially for Isak. I still think the much more likely option is a Gyokores or a Sesko for about half that. So that's 70 million already on the table. And then you're talking about 50 million for Zubamendi. If you're then talking about 20, 25 million for Ryan Garcia, which is another move that the expectations are is probably going to happen this summer, you're already then up to around the 150 million pound mark. And that's before you factor in whether Arsenal sign a winger, which I think we all hope they're going to do, because I don't think you just need one attacker to this squad. You need to add 2 attackers to this squad. So if you then go and add a winger for that, I don't know, you put 50 million down, you're talking 200 million pounds already there on 4 players. So it is going to be a big summer for Arsenal. Even if it's just 3 and the winger doesn't arrive, which again, I hope it does, 150 million is still a big outlay in a summer where I look at the players that Arsenal could potentially sell. I don't think there's a massive, significant amount of money coming in this summer unless, they do decide to sell one of the players that we consider, a regular first team player rather than the kind of fringe player that we've seen them sell in the last few years. So there were interesting comments in answer to your question, Lewis. Interesting comments from Arteta. I don't think it's necessarily going to drive the price up. I don't think clubs are going to look at this and say, oh, 2 months ago, Arteta said this is going to be a big summer, so we're going to add an extra £5 million onto what we were originally asking for this player. So I don't think it would affect the actual business that they do. But my first thought was, he's created a bit of rod for his own back here with these comments, because if things don't happen the way that we and as the fan base want them to happen, then I think those words are certainly going to be used against him. So I was a little bit surprised, but yeah, I did also in my mind think, is this a bit of a challenge to Andrea Berta just as he gets through the door on his first couple of days. So yeah, that's the latest. The big summer for Arsenal. Now we wait. Still got a couple of months to really go until that kicks off, but now we wait and see if those words ring true from Arteta. Right, moving on into today's game. And look, if you're watching on YouTube, how lovely a sight is that? Bukayo Saka in training yesterday with Arsenal, looking very fit and healthy, which we all want. And we're going to see him later on today. That is for certain, barring, touch wood, any late complications that we don't know about. But he looks, as I said, very fit and healthy in these pictures that were released yesterday from Arsenal from his training session, full training. He was on the winning 5-a-side team yesterday. What a surprise as well. And so, yeah, great to see him back. Obviously, Arteta was talking about him a lot in yesterday's live section of the press conference, hinted that he could be in contention to start the game even. I don't think that's going to be the case, but that's certainly what he said in the press conference. He did speak about Saka more in the embargoed section, and some quite interesting stuff, I thought, from him on Saka. I'm just going to read them to you here. So he was kind of asked about, He was asked about whether there's been a sort of behind, because there was whispers of a behind closed doors friendly against someone during the international break, which I'd asked about, and I'd been told, that there wasn't, they didn't play a friendly against a team. But there seems like something happened, because this is what he said. We played once, but before that, he had 6 consecutive sessions with the team, and he was good. We played that game. He felt completely fine. So that's why I'm sure that we have managed to replicate almost every scenario he could face. At the end, you need that 60,000 stadium, a different competitive level, a referee, and to play the game. So it sounds like there was something done. I think it might have been an in-house game rather than a friendly against another club who'd come over, as we sometimes see in pre-season for behind closed doors friendlies. I think it might have been a game, a sort of 11 on 11 proper competitive match at Colney, but not against another rival team. He was also asked about whether he's fearful of Saka sort of, re-injuring himself, when he does that first sort of explosive sprint in a real game scenario. And he said no, because he has done everything many times already. He needs exposure in games, but all the boxes he has to tick are there. The concerns normally are when you are rushing an injury. It is when there's been a 3-week injury and after 10 days you want to put yourself on the pitch and you're almost praying that it won't go again. But he has been really good in the process. We have a lot of reassurance that he can do very well now. So it does everything that certainly he has said publicly, and also what I'd heard, in terms of that he could have probably played before the international break if push comes to shove, but Arsenal decided against it. And what he's saying here, they have taken a lot of care behind Saka's recovery and his rehab, and they are absolutely convinced now that he is completely ready to go. There's no sort of worry about, maybe he's come back too soon. They are very confident that he's absolutely ready to go. The medical staff, everyone who's delivered the reports on what he's gone through and what he's done, are happy that he is ready to start playing football again. So you have to manage load, obviously, because he's not played any minutes. So that's why I just can't see a way. I'm sure he's fit enough to start from a physical point of view today, but you've got to measure that load really, really carefully and get those minutes up in his legs. So that's why I don't think he will start today. I think he'll be on the bench and he'll come on. We'll see him for 20, 25 minutes, something like that in the second half. Maybe more if the game state means that we need Bukayo Saka. So if we're losing, we're half an hour to go or something like that, maybe we might see him for half an hour. Hopefully we're not going to be losing, so we don't need to do that. But, that's what I think will happen. And I think you'll probably see him play for longer against Everton and then start the game against Real Madrid. I'm sure that's the plan. I'm sure that's been the plan for the last 6 weeks or so, is to make sure he is ready to start against Real Madrid in the Champions League quarterfinal. So yeah, that's what he's had to say about Bukayo Saka. On Fulham, and whether they're more dangerous after their disappointing FA Cup defeat to Palace at the weekend, he said, I don't know. It's always a really tough opposition, a team that is very well coached. They've been together for many years. They have great organisation, a lot of individual quality, and a very clear identity of how they play, how they want to approach games, especially against us. So we're going to have to be really good tomorrow to beat them. Obviously, Arsenal haven't beaten Fulham for a while now. Drew earlier on in the season at Craven Cottage. Last season, they lost at Craven Cottage. They drew 2-2 at the Emirates, so it's been a long time since Arsenal have beaten Fulham. Obviously, tonight sees the return of Emile Smith-Rowe to the Emirates for the first time since his departure. Mikel was asked how good he can be, and he said exceptional. He's got all the attributes to become a top footballer, and that consistency, especially with us, he was unable to maintain, especially in the periods that he had injuries. But he has tremendous qualities. Now, he was asked there, when he was asked about how good he can be, and was asked about consistency, about comments made by Marco Silva yesterday about Emile and his first season with Fulham. And Marco Silva said he's had some ups and downs. Doesn't surprise us from a player who wasn't playing a lot of football in the last couple of seasons. He's had good games, others not too good. He needs to find his level to perform consistently well. Premier League demands a lot from you. We have been working with him to be in his best physical shape. He has to take some steps soon. I really like him, trusting he's had an impact, and he will in the future too. People like to look at the negative sides. As a manager, I like to look at the positives. We all expected him to have an impact in every game in a Fulham shirt. He's had an impact in maybe half the game that he's played. So sort of consistency issues over Emile's first season in Fulham. Definitely had a really strong start with them. But, he's definitely sort of fizzled out a little bit at the moment. I've got a couple of mates who are Fulham fans, and they say the same thing. 1 week, great. 1 week, sort of anonymous. So he comes out the side. But he's going to get brilliant reception. Can't wait to see him today. I love Emile Smith-Rowe. Really upset when he left. as you all know, who are regular viewers of this channel. So I can't wait to see him back. I'm sure he's going to get a brilliant reception. Just hopefully doesn't have one of those good games that he's had tonight. Much rather have him have a quiet game. If he starts tonight, obviously didn't start the weekend in their game against Palace. Oh, and there's a picture of him just for because I forgot to bring it up while I was talking about him. Let's talk about predicted 11s then. This is what I've gone for tonight's game. I really think that he's going to use tonight as a sort of build up to Real Madrid. I think the 11 that we see tonight will not be far off the 11 that we see against Real Madrid in midweek for the first leg next week. I think he might make a few changes against Everton. So I was thinking about Timber or Ben White. It depends on Timber's fitness, after that illness he's had after the international break. But if he's fine, I think Timber plays 60 minutes tonight. Ben White comes on, and then I reckon Ben White starts against Everton, and Timber might get 20 minutes or so ahead before coming back into the side for the Real Madrid game. So I've gone Raya in goal. I've gone Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, and Lewis Skelly. Obviously, no Calafiori tonight. I've gone with Partey, Odegaard, and Rice. Up front, I'm then going Martinelli on the right, Marino, and Trossard. Remember, this is what I'm predicting Arteta is going to do, not necessarily what I would like to do. Obviously, that means there's no Ethan Nwaneri, so we'll wait and see if I'm correct or not. I just have a feeling that's what Mikel might do tonight. So Martinelli on the right, Trossard on the left, and Marino up top. So one more time, my predicted 11 for tonight: Raya, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, Lewis Skelly, Partey, Odegaard, Rice, Martinelli, Marino, and Trossard. Here's what some of you guys have been saying ahead of the game. Conrad up the top there says, I'd be more surprised if he didn't start Saka tomorrow. MRF says, proper mind games. He will play 10 minutes. TDTM82 quite rightly says, RIP David Rocastle. Indeed, 24 years yesterday, David Rocastle very sadly left us. One of my favourite players as a kid. Before Righty arrived, was my favourite player as a kid. Just a wonderful, wonderful player. And just doesn't matter how many years pass, it's still just desperately sad that we lost him so soon. So RIP David Rocastle. TDT continues then saying it's great to see Saka back. So happy with what Arsenal doing despite the haters calling out Arteta. Special thanks to Josh Kroenke for backing Arteta, our new sporting director. Good luck to Andre Alberto. Swift recovery for your son, Tom Marshall. Thank you very much, Tom. He's okay. He's sitting in the room just over there at the moment playing on his PlayStation 5. He will be back to school tomorrow. Not allowed to go back today because he was sick and he's got to stay off for 48 hours. But he will be back to school tomorrow. So thank you for asking, Tom. What's that? Enchanted Edition, is that? 6879 says, Saka on the bench is just as scary as Saka starting, if not more so for opposing teams. Yeah, you don't want to see Saka coming on when your legs are tired with 25 minutes to go. And then Big Think 1000 says, it's time to beat Fulham. Saka is back. Aaron has also got in touch. There's a bit of predicted 11 for the Fulham game. Big decision to make as the next 2 to 3 weeks are packed with games and fixtures. Rotations will be inevitable. Raya, White, Saliba, Gabriel, Skelly, Jorginho, Rice, Odegaard, Martinelli, Marino, and Nwaneri. That is your predicted 11. Thank you very much for that, Aaron. Richard says, little worried about Gyokores' pace and or change of pace. Do you think my worries in regard is valid at all? I don't worry about that. I think he's deceptively quick, to be honest. Because I look at Gyokores and his running style, and I think, is he a bit slow? Is he a bit Giroud-like? But then he seems to get away from defenders and have one-on-ones an awful lot. And when he does get away from defenders, they don't tend to get back to him. Admittedly, he uses his strength really well, which if he does have a bit of pace, lack of pace, compared to the top sprinters, even as soon as he gets goal side, I think defenders just struggle to get back goal side of him because he just uses his strength to keep them behind him. He uses his arms well, the strength, the upper body strength he has. And so when he's running, defenders can't get past him to get back at the ball because he's so strong. So no, and also when I look at the way Arsenal play and the way they dominate territory, we don't really ever have those situations where we get teams really wide open. I wish we did have more of that, but I don't think we do, just because of the way we play and the territory we have, the dominance we have of the ball in the majority of the games. We're always in the opposition pitch, which is why we start getting into that sort of pass, sideways motion, because it's just what comes with the sort of dominance that we have when we control the ball so much. So I'm not really too worried about that. I think he's just going to be in and around the penalty area, being able to do hopefully what he does best, which is just shove defenders out of the way, score goals, and just be physically imposing. So, no, I have to say, Richard, I'm not that worried about his pace or change of pace. And anyway, we don't know he's going to sign for Arsenal yet anyway. So, but no, if he does sign, I'm not sure I'd be too concerned with that. And I don't look at him and think he's sluggish anyway, I have to say. Paul has got in touch here, and this is in response to the show I did yesterday on Andrea Berta with Alex Kirkland of the ESPN, who is ESPN's Madrid correspondent. If you haven't watched that yet or listened to that yet, it's in the previous videos or down in your podcast. You can find it. It's just 45 minutes, really, of me and Alex talking. Alex certainly using his insight from his time based over in Madrid on what Arsenal will be getting from Andrea Berta as sporting director. Paul says, excellent chat. Many thanks, guys. Two things struck me. Firstly, do you think there's a chance he's been appointed to help Arsenal move to a multi-club model? Arteta recently said it's hard for us to compete with it. Note Malaga being a target for Fenway Sports Group and the owners of PSG. I don't think it would be a shock if we move in that way over the next decade. No, I don't think it'll be a shock. I don't like it. I have to say, I hate multi-club models. I just don't like the ethics behind them at all. But I think reluctantly Arsenal might move into that way of thinking just because all of their rivals seem to be doing it. And when that happens, you kind of end up being forced down that route, to be honest. So it wouldn't surprise me if it is something that eventually happens. Secondly, Paul says, if he's a guy that never gives an interview, how comes the world and his wife knows that Berta wants to buy Gyokores? Seems to me that those two statements are mutually exclusive. There's a difference between giving a public interview and also speaking to people off the record and journalists off the record and things like that. So things still do leak out. You might not publicly say things and go on record of saying things, but there's very different. People will speak off the record at times. And I don't know if when you say the world and his wife seems to know that Berta wants to buy Gyokores, I know in that story that David did, he said, Berta is an admirer of Gyokores, but Arsenal have been admirers of Gyokores for a long, long time as well. It's not something, it's not like Arsenal have never been linked with Gyokores before. They've watched him extensively before. We know that. It's a known secret. They've never made a move for him yet. But so I don't necessarily think just because Berta's coming in, he's coming in just with the vision of signing Gyokores. It might just be that he agrees with Arsenal's thinking that this summer might be the summer that they should make a move for him. But again, long way to go yet in that regards. We'll wait and see what happens. Anyway, that's it from me today, everyone. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Like I said, I'll be at the Emirates tonight, but no live updates on social media for me because I'm in the stands with my dad in my usual seat for this one, but I will be back in the morning to do the review show. You want to get involved in that, come back to this video after the game, leave your comments, leave your who impressed you, who didn't, your man of the match, all that sort of stuff, and I'll pull them together as usual and get them included in the show. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.